Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Well, today we're going to be having a quick look at the Emp Ronin, which is a 1911 chambered in 9mm. Basically, they've scaled down a standard 1911 to better accommodate the 9mm cartridge and make it a better carry pistol. Have they succeeded? Are there any benefits to this? Well, we're going to look at all the features, and we'll try to answer those questions and more in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've watched our videos before and just haven't had a chance before now and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can locate that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your computer screen there, or if on a mobile device, you can just scroll down below the video and hit subscribe that way. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to be reminded of new content. It's a simple thing that helps us out a whole lot, and we really appreciate it. So, the Emp Ronin by Springfield Armory. This is a 4-inch model. There are other variants available. So, when I talk about this being a scaled down version, basically, there are a lot of parts, proprietary parts that Springfield came up with to basically scale down standard 1911 parts so that it would be better suited for the 9mm cartridge. Now, we always like to do a little size comparison here, and I think in this case, it's a pretty good one because for me, I'm kind of expecting a scaled down version to be, lighter and smaller. Now, this is a Springfield Armory range operator. This is the Champion. I have some others, but this happens to be the Champion. Now, aside from it having thicker grips, which you'll see in a second, the overall footprint and outline of these two handguns is very much the same. If you look here, they're very, very similar in thickness. They're not exactly the same, but they're very close. You can see the width, you can see the length of the grip, and they look very much alike in many ways. And like I say, you can see that the grips clearly are thicker on the range officer here. But other than that, these are extremely close. And to me, that kind of begs the question, is it really that much smaller? And of course, as far as the weight, the Emp weighs 27.5 ounces according to Springfield, and the range officer here weighs 30 ounces. And then of course you have to remember, then your weight change, there'll be more to that, but of course the difference in the number of rounds they carry, I'll get into more of that with the specifications. But it's just something to think about because it's a nice looking model. It is sleek feeling, feels good in the hand. But I'm definitely going to want to look at this a little bit closer and see if it's any advantages as far as carry. Alright, we're going to jump right into the features here. But before we do, of course, we're going to take a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the 4-inch Emp Ronin by Springfield Armory. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearm safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. So, as usual, of course, we're going to remove the magazine, make sure that the firearm is safe, and you can see that there's nothing in the chamber, so we are safe and ready to discuss. Now, we'll start with the magazine here since I have it out. Now, this, of course, is a 9mm firearm, and most of you that are used to carrying 45 ACP 1911s are used to a 7+1 capacity, and there are some exceptions. But most 45 ACP 1911s are 7+1. So, since this is 9mm, smaller cartridge, and other changes, you have a 10-round capacity out of the magazine here. So this makes this a 10+1. For some people, that may be enough to, make them lean toward the 9mm just because of the increased capacity. For me, a total of 8 rounds of 45 is just as good as a total of 11 rounds of 9mm, but that's just me. I like the 45 ACP cartridge a lot, and I shoot it a lot. I also like the 9mm cartridge, but in a 1911 platform, for me, I think I prefer the 45 ACP. But I'm not done yet. My real gripe here is that you only get one magazine. And for a firearm that has an MSRP of around $920, I kind of got a problem with that. And I don't want to get on too much of a rant here because I try to avoid that. But, you know, Springfield, if you're listening, all gun manufacturers, if you're listening, people have pretty much learned they have to kind of accept the price point that your guns come out at, and they buy them or they don't. Well, it wouldn't have been that much more difficult to either include another magazine or, you know, make the gun a little more expensive and have it come with two. I would have actually paid, you know, $50 more for the gun to get two magazines and would have never known the difference. Because if I'm already paying $900 for a gun, what's 50 more bucks for a magazine? Because, I mean, let's just face it, when you buy spare magazines, it's rare you're going to get them cheaper than that anyway. So that's the one thing right off the bat is I don't like the fact it's only got one magazine. But getting to the gun itself, there are some things about the Ronin that are very, very similar to many of my other Springfield 1911s, including this range officer that I really like. And you can just look and see the similarities just looking between the two firearms. So I'm going to put this away, and we'll just kind of talk about it and the features here. So starting at the top as usual, you've got this fiber optic front sight with a 2-dot white rear. That's kind of my minimum standard for sights. I like a glow sight, but if I have a high visibility front and a white dot rear, I'm good to go. This is easy to pick up, and if it gets so dark that you can't see this, well, it's probably too dark for you to hit anything anyway, and you shouldn't be shooting. So there's that. Got a really nice finish on the slide here. It has serrations here at the rear only, which work fine for me. The way I typically move the slide on a 1911 is going to be strictly from the rear anyway, so that's fine with me. Of course, coming back here, you can see it has your slide lock and release here, which we showed you a while ago. And then, of course, you've got your safety, since it is a 1911, it does have a standard 1911 safety. And, of course, it has a grip safety. So, you know, it has to have all of these things, of course, to be a true 1911. And keep in mind, of course, this is a 1911. Now, they've scaled parts down to, you know, accommodate, to get it to the proportions they want for this gun. But it is a 1911. It's just a bit scaled down on some of its parts. And, of course, you can see your hammer here. They've got a skeletonized hammer there, and it's got some, you know, lines cut into it so you can grip it easily. And then, of course, looking at the trigger, you have a skeletonized trigger. This is your magazine release, and it's typical of most 1911s. You know, it's just small, round. It's where you would expect it. Nothing much to talk about there. The grips. It's got wooden grips, and I'm kind of a fan of wooden grips on guns like this. There's a few guns that I change over to G10 grips right when I get them, depending on the gun. But if I can get a good quality wooden grip that has good texturing like this, I'll normally leave it on the gun, and these are very nice. It's very good feel, and it has just as good a grip as any other, like, you know, polymer or aluminum grip that I've had my hands on, so I think these are really nice. And of course there's texturing, you know, cut into the metal here on the rear as well. So you've got plenty of grip surface to keep a good, you know, good firm solid hold on the gun. And it feels good in your hand. Like I say, aside from very small modifications they've made, the gun feels, you know, very much like a regular 1911. There's much thinner grips on this than, say, on my Range Officer Champion there, but I do have thinner grips on some, and this does feel very similar. Maybe just slightly. It's really hard to describe because it's so close to the thickness of the others. They're virtually the same to me. And of course, this is a 1911. So those of you who aren't too familiar with the 1911, this is single action only. So, like all 1911s, true 1911s rather, the only way this gun is going to fire is you have to have the hammer back, okay, and you can carry it with the safety on, that type of thing. And then, of course, when you get ready to use the firearm, you'll drop your safety and you'll pull the trigger. And when you do, of course, the slide will come back, it will recycle, and then you'll be ready to go for another shot. But once again, like all 1911s, it is single action. So you'll have to make sure you have the hammer cocked so that a single action will result in that hammer falling. And then, of course, your subsequent shots will be the same. The trigger on this, I'll get into this more in the range section, but the trigger is actually pretty good. You hit this trigger, you feel a little bit, there's a little small, very small window, and it just breaks like glass. And then the reset is very, very short. I mean, if you're the type of person that likes taking repeated, accurate shots, this is a nice trigger setup. And like I said, we'll talk about that more in a minute. But this is your overall feature set for the 4-inch Emp Ronin by Springfield Armory. So talking about the range, this particular gun, the 4-inch version of the Emp Ronin here, this is a gun I got to shoot a lot when it first came out. One of my gun colleagues, I guess you will, he's a fellow shooter and collector, much larger collector than myself in some cases, had this gun when it was first released, and we had a range day, and I just had a glorious time shooting this gun. So let me tell you about it. So I'm used to shooting 45 ACP 1911s, and I like them. I feel like I can produce really, really good shots no matter which one I pick up. It doesn't matter whose 1911 is, unless there's something wrong with it. Most 1911s in 45 ACP I can shoot very well. So I picked this up thinking that it would be, different, maybe having to adjust a little bit, the fact that it's a 9mm. But it really feels about the same, because the size, the proportions of the gun, and you have to remember 9mm ammunition has come a long way too. So the way the modern ammo and the way modern handguns work, you've got very powerful 9mm cartridges these days, and I think it's matched very well with the internals of this firearm. And so to me, it feels no different than when I'm shooting a 45 ACP. Maybe not quite as much energy going into my hand. I'm not entirely sure. I shot both 45 ACP and 9mm on that day, and I couldn't really tell much difference, but it did feel like maybe it was just a little bit lighter as far as what I was feeling in my hand with the 9mm version. Now, having said that, once again, I like, both versions quite a bit. I end up shooting 9mm and all other kinds of platforms overall more, but as far as 1911s, it's strictly 45 ACP for me. Now, this gun did very well with everything I could throw at it. 115 grain PMC, it can shoot that all day long, no problem. 115 grain SMB, it'll shoot this all day long, no problem. Of course, there's not a single 9mm on the planet that I'm not going to test with some SIG. I like the SIG V-Crown as a defensive round. SIG doesn't pay me to talk about their ammo. They never have. I doubt they ever will. But I always use the 124 and the 115 grain to see which one's better. And usually the 115 ends up being the winner as far as how well I shoot it. I also like to shoot some of the gold dot here, the 124 grain. And I got a little bit different results this time because the 124 was actually the most accurate thing I shot out of this gun. And usually if it comes down to the SIG ammo, the 115 is going to be the better for me. But with this particular gun, the 124 was the victor. And what I base that on is shooting a box of each. And after I've warmed up with regular ammo, this is just shooting a box of each at a target, and it's your overall performance. So whatever factors went into it, I pretty much feel like I'm going to shoot the same. I think this box was in the middle. So I had some worse performances before this box and some worse performances after this box. So I didn't think it had anything to do with what order they were shot in either. Either way, the message that gave me is it's a gun that's not picky about ammo. And if you've spent any time shooting 1911s, and or been around people shooting 1911s, you may hear people complain that their 1911's picky with hollow point ammo, or their 1911 is picky with this or that. This particular firearm wasn't picky with anything that went through it. It's a great shooter. It was reliable the whole time, and it was a lot of fun. So when it comes to carry, this is no different to me than any other 1911 that I would carry. And what I mean is, this is big enough and bulky enough to where if I replace this with, say, a regular, 45 ACP 1911, well, that's something big enough that I'm going to carry it. I'm going to carry it in this larger, this is a crossbreed Super Tuck right here. You got your horsehide and your Kydex. It's a double clip setup. It's a very, very good holster. Well, this gun that we're talking about here today, I could put this gun right in this holster and it fits with the same retention. So when I say that it's almost the exact same size, ultimately I would like to have an individual holster for this one, because there's probably, like I said, there's the tiniest bit of difference between the two. But just for the sake of being able to carry it, I could use a holster that's specifically for this other gun, and it worked just fine. Very comfortable. I definitely would not try to carry this gun using... I wouldn't want to use a different type of holster, something that didn't have better support. Like, I've seen people try to carry these guns like appendix carry with a single clip holster in the front. I don't know how they do that. I can't do it, and I wouldn't even try. These guns are heavy enough to where they really need those two clips, to support the extra weight, and you need a good belt, because a good holster is kind of useless unless you got a belt that'll hold it up. But I've carried, once again, I've carried guns like this as my carry gun. I don't really do it so much these days, because as I further my journey in carry, my guns are tending to get smaller and lighter. That way I make sure to carry them. And so I've done this, and carrying a gun like this in that crossbreed holster was extremely comfortable for me. I could get in and out of the car with it, and I wasn't uncomfortable. It was a good all-day carry option. But you do know that you've got a big gun on, because you do have some bulk and some weight, and there's not really any getting around that. So if you're okay with that, this would be a good option. If you're used to carrying a 1911, then this wouldn't bother you at all. Overall, I would say that the Emp Ronin's a pretty good handgun. Like I say, I like 1911s, and, I'd say that at some point here pretty soon, we need to give you guys like a full-blown 1911 video, because I need to go over all of the details of just that gun. So that'll be coming soon. But having said that, I've got to shoot a lot of different 1911s. I mean, big, full-size, 10 millimeters, 45 ACP, competition guns. And I think the 45, to me, is the best version of the 1911. And I'm not just saying that because that's the original version. I'm just saying that because of all the versions I've shot, I seem to shoot that one the best, and it's the most comfortable, and I can be the most, accurate with it. However, if you're not already kind of, used to the 45, and you want to try something, like if you want to get into this type of gun, I think that this would be a really good option for somebody, especially if your other guns are 9mm guns, because some people, they like to set their safe up and their collection up around as few cartridges as possible. So if you didn't already have 45 ACP guns, but you want something that is 1911 in your collection, something like this would be a good option. Now, like I say, it's not cheap. The MSRP on this one is around $920. And once again, I have my gripe about this, I think, for $920. Come on, Springfield. One magazine. But I won't spend too much time on that. But magazines obviously are available from Springfield and from different supply houses, so you can get as many as you want. But I think it's a good firearm. To me, it's a bit pricey. It's not pricey compared to Springfield's other offerings in both 45 ACP and then, other, 1911s. and different platforms. So it's not overpriced compared to a lot of what they offer, but to me, it's not cheap. So if you're one of these people that if you're not looking to pay a premium price for something, there are other options, including just regular 1911s that you can get for a lot less money. Are they going to be as nice? Well, not necessarily. One thing Springfield does a good job with is the finish on these guns, and I think they use good quality materials, and the Springfield 1911s that I have all proven to be really good guns over time. So that's something you have to consider too. But it's a good shooting gun. It was a lot of fun. It's not picky about ammo. And so it'd be a good choice for people who are just now getting into the 1911 or have been doing it their whole life. So there you have it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. As always, we appreciate you being with us. We'll be back very soon with another video for you. So until that time, as always, everybody stay safe and have a great day. Thank you.